Hey guys, welcome back. A small but pretty cool side effect of messing around with stuff and having access to a small soldering iron is that people at work bring me stuff that they'd like fixed, and well, I don't really mind. It's practice and it saves something from going to the scrap heap. And this here is one of those examples. This is a media interface for a CD player in a vehicle. And if you look carefully there, you'll see the pins on that USB are all messed up. And so what has happened is the plastic little follower, the little guide that's in there is gone. And so let's take a look, open this up, and see if we can fix it. So there's just a single screw under here. I don't think it's going to be very hard to take apart. There's the screw. And there we go. We see this USB connector is sort of like a sort of made lengthwise, and we can see there it's got 4 pins, 1, 2, 3, 4 for the outside casing, and the 4 for the 5 volts ground, data plus, data minus. So this here is kind of expensive if you want to buy it from the manufacturer, if you can even buy it from the manufacturer anymore. But this here, which is a bag of, I think, 10 connectors, is, I think it was about $2 or something. Maybe 3. They are like specialty connectors. They're not the standard ones, but as you can see, like that, you see the big difference there. So my plan here is to use my soldering iron to heat up these pads. I'm going to add a little bit of leaded solder wire, or leaded solder, to it, and then heat it up once again. And with a solder pump or a solder sucker, which you'll see shortly, I'm going to take the solder out and then solder the new one in. It sounds easy. It should be pretty simple. The only thing we're going to have to take care of is that this is a 2-sided board, so this thing is not going to cooperate, and the pads are very small, so we have to keep the temperature low and we have to give it plenty of time to cool. Basically, this is scrap without me, so he's not too worried about this being fixed. Like if it gets ruined, it'll be ruined either way. So we're just going to try to fix this, and very likely we'll be able to. If not, I don't know if you can see here, but this is the 4 kind of wires that connect to it, and all this really is a USB extension. The important part is the casing here fits it and fits into like another spot in the car. So I'm going to get ready to solder this up, or desolder it I should say, and I'll bring you back then. Before we go on, I just want you guys to know I am no expert. I know the basics of how this works, and don't take what I do here as gospel. What I want you to understand is it's not that difficult, especially if something's already broken. You can't break it any more than it already is, right? If you've already thought that this thing is trash, there's no sense in worrying about it because you've got nothing to lose, right? So here's the solder sucker. If you've never seen it, it's just like it's like a syringe almost with a spring load, and basically you press this plunger down, it locks on this button here, and then this here is an opening where you just put it on the hot solder with the iron, and then you press this button and the plunger pops back up, creating a huge vacuum sucking the molten solder. This is a double-sided board, like I said. It's hard to show you, but there is down there, if you can see, there's solder all the way through. So I don't know how well this is going to go, but we are going to give it a shot together. So I also use my iron at 350 Celsius. I find that is a good temperature for me. Your results may vary, so you kind of have to figure out what your iron likes and what you're comfortable with, the speed at which you can go. So the first things first, these 4 solder points here for the casing. Okay, so we've got 1, 2, 3, and 4, I'm going to want to flow some lead-based solder. Now, lead-based solder flows a little bit better, so I'm hoping that when we try to suck it out, it's alloyed with the stuff that doesn't flow so well, and it comes out all together. Put some more on there. Okay, this is on a ground plane. You can see this big, here, this outline here. This is all one connection. So we have a lot of heat that we have to suck through. So I'm leaving the iron on a little bit longer than I should, because I really want that heat to penetrate. We've got a lot of heat sink. Ouch. Okay, so that's done. I'm gonna load up the solder sucker. I'm gonna start with this one here. So I get it nice and hot, bring it close, suck it out. I got a lot in that shot. I'm gonna do some more. Okay, got some more out. Starting to get diminishing returns now. Okay, let's take a look at what we've got here. So the pad is, you guys can probably see it in HD better than I can, so I'm kind of far away, but the pad is kind of concave there. We've got some stuff out. I'm going to try again. Nice and hot. You can also try with a solder wick, but unfortunately I don't have any. I think that's as much as we're going to go. The other option is to suck out as much as we can and then cut the pins off. Oops, wasn't ready with the desoldering pump here. Okay, got a bunch out. I'm not too worried about lifting these ground pads. They're not that important after all. The data pins are, though. These 4 pins in the middle will be a lot tougher because they're a lot more important, and they're smaller, so I can't leave the heat to it so much. And just take a look here. We've definitely had some progress, but not a lot. So it did go, just maybe not as much as I had hoped. Okay, we're going to move on to the 4 little pins here. One of these is also a ground plane. Will also be attached to the ground plane, the negative pin. And again, I'm not too worried about damaging this. If it happens, it happens, but we are trying our best not to let it happen. Okay, so I'm going to come over here. That had good suction on it. Try one more time. Good. Go to the other end. Making sure I'm still in shot. Oh, that one went clean. That one's completely off there. Good. Okay, so got some stuff off. Feeling there's a lot of heat here, so I might just pause for a few minutes and let this whole thing cool down, and we'll keep going on the 4 anchoring pins there. Alright, so I let it cool for a few minutes, and I also flipped it the other way. So now the angle I'll be getting on the solder sucker will be different, right? It's going to be 180 degrees opposite. So we're going to do this again. This time I think I might actually add a little flux to these. So I have a flux pen here. This is just, again, this is all eBay stuff, right? This is eBay. My soldering iron is like a Heiko knockoff from eBay. Everything is cheap here. So even if you have to buy this once to do a repair, you can do multiple more repairs afterwards. You've already got the tools. Alright, so let's heat this up. Hear the flux burning off. Don't know how much we actually got off there. I'm going to try once more. Pressing down hard, the iron. I think we got a little bit. It's being more difficult than I had expected. We may have to cut off the actual USB connector. Which I have expected to be a possibility. Let me just check how we're doing. Looks like one of the pins, this one here, this one over here, is almost free. I'm going to add some solder to the other pins and hope the extra alloying will help. Very difficult though, because it's a two-sided board and the heat sinking is massive because it's the whole body of the connector. Look at that, it's just cooling down right away. Okay, I'm going to let the ground plane cool down again and bring you back. I think this time around I'm going to take a slightly different strategy. I am going to try to heat the cage up of the USB connector. This will take a long time to actually heat up, but it's possible that it makes a difference. Just going to like preheat it a little bit and then move on to the pad. I have my solder sucker ready. Okay, once more. And that one's done actually. That's good, making sure I'm still in shot. Heat this up. I think we may have gotten it. Yeah, if that's not through, it's almost through. Alright. Now here's where the part where you could get burned a little. I'm just going to push down with gentle pressure on the USB connector. Just going to run my iron by these. Getting them hot. I don't care if I bend the connector. Ouch. What I do care is if I burn myself. But it doesn't really matter if I bend the connector. I just don't want the pad to lift on the other side. It seems as though it is the solder on the other side holding it. I'm going to go over here to these. It seems to be moving. I'm going to give my thumb a rest here. I think I did manage to bend it up a tad. It's hard to say. It's getting pretty hot too. Okay, I'm going to go. Trying to apply the heat onto the pin itself. So it hopefully the heat travels up and releases from the solder on the other side. I might trim away some of this caging here, see if that'll do a better job, but I do see that there is solder through there. I don't know if you can see. Through there I can see there is some holding still. Okay, I'm going to find a way to mount this proud from the bench a little bit so that we have some more maneuvering space, and I'll bring you back. Okay, so let's try this. So I have, I just tacked it down, but I have a poster board, the poster tack, I guess, this tacky stuff you use to hang stuff on the wall that you don't want to destroy the wall with. Put that on there. I've got my iron cranked up a little bit to 385. I'm hoping to heat these guys enough to the point where it's going to dislodge. I might use more solder, we'll see. I'm not worried about lifting the ground plane pads up so much. It's more the data pins which I'm concerned about, but again, I think they'll be okay. Just kind of heating these pins up in turn. Make no mistake, the iron is hot. It's just the method of wave soldering, like machine soldering these things in. Oh, getting some movement. Is very efficient. It goes right through the holes. See, this pin is now flush with the surface. Making sure it's not one of these pins holding on. I am ruining the solder mask. Gonna try to heat these two back ones up. There is some movement though. I can hear it. Just not sure which pin is actually hanging on. Okay, let me see what it looks like now. The two front pins are almost completely out. So I might be able to go in there, sort of heat up that pin. While it's hot, prise it out. You're not really supposed to use your soldering iron as a pry bar, but I'm sort of left with no choice. Oh, I think it pulled through. Okay, I can work these two rear pins, then I think we'll be home free. If we can suck some of this terrible solder, lead-free solder out. Keep getting minuscule amounts at a time. That may be all we need. Something certainly let go. See if I can break the connector off of the board so I can go on and safely remove little bits of shrapnel that are left. The last pin that's left is this corner here. I'm going to zoom you in a little bit. I think if I get this hot enough, it'll just go back through. Sorry if you're out of focus there. Trying my best. Whoop. Yeah, it's all out. All I have left is one data pin stuck in there. So I'm going to see if I can get that data pin out. Here, let me see if I can show you. There's the pin right there in the middle, up there. I'm going to see if I can grab a little pair of pliers, pull it out. Nope, it's still held in by some solder, so I'm going to hold it with the pliers. See if I can hold it in focus. There we go. So everything is out. I just need to use the solder sucker to pull all the rest of this stuff out of the holes, all the solder out of the holes, and then we'll be able to solder the new connector on. It looks like we didn't lift any of the pads. May not be the prettiest, but they are intact. Oh, I think we've pulled a pad off. Nope. Looks like it's still intact. It doesn't look pretty. They look intact. So now the next step is to fit on the new connector, and I'll bring you back for that. So the new connector now should just fit right onto those pads. The holes are a bit ugly, so it's possible it doesn't fit perfectly, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. I'm actually going to straighten these a little bit, and normally you wouldn't have to straighten them. It's just because our desoldering was a little bit more, a little less than finessed. How about that? I'm just going to work these legs in. They need to be bent in a bit more. Just trying to sight it here, line it up. It is the correct footprint, which is always a good sign. May have to go, I'm going to go and pull a bit more solder out of those holes. Not sure if there's anything left to go, but have to try. It's really not interested in giving up any more of its solder. This may be the time where solder wick might be a good idea, but I don't have any on hand. Oops. Can't seem to get that little bit of extra out of there. There's another method you can try too, if that's not working, is you just heat it up, get it nice and hot, and then slam the whole thing down onto the table. So doesn't seem to be working either. There we go. Okay, let's try to get this new connector in. I have a few of these connectors, so I'm not too worried if I mangle this one on the way in. The important part for me is I don't mangle the circuit board. I can see that this hole here still has some solder in it. So again I go. I'm going to try the same method here. I'm going to add a little bit of lead solder. Hopefully you can pull the rest out. Does look a little bigger. There we go. It might fight and scream, but eventually it does lose the battle. Okay. So now I think I want to solder on the big parts. So these legs here, so that they're the mechanical hold for this entire operation. I wish it was common to use bolted connections for high wear stuff, but it's not. Okay, 2. And you might notice that these take a little bit more heat, right? Because they have to heat up the whole cage, the entire connector. There we go. Now we're just going to gently clean the tip of my iron. We're just going to gently go and add a little bit of solder to these pads. Then I'm going to have to check them, make sure we didn't bridge anything. And they should be good to go. That's all 4. Let me just inspect. They do look properly soldered, and they do look intact. Now, one way I can test this is if I have a USB connector put on the other side, like a charger. and if I can actually get a charge out of this. So let me just move this aside. So notice my tablet here, 29% on the remaining charge. Okay, I'm going to take this lead, I'm going to plug it into our new connector. Okay, so that's plugged in. Plug it into my tablet. Okay, so it's plugged in, it's not doing anything. And now I'm going to plug this into a USB charger. Don't know if it'll actually work because there's a little bit of a sheath there stopping me from putting it in, but we'll see. Well, it looks like the sheath is too big. They really only want this plugged into what it's supposed to be plugged into, which is that radio. Let me see if I can find something with a USB connection where this fits in a little deeper. And I'll bring you back then. Scratch that. I actually managed to pull the sheath off the end. So I'm going to plug this into my charger and into the wall. Boom. Success. It is charging. And it's not even showing me a problem with charging, so it is rapid charging. So that's it for today. Thanks again for watching, and I hope you guys realize that no matter how beginner you are, all it takes is trial and error, and you will get it done eventually. Thanks for watching.